immerse yourself into the world of Creepy Man. He's waiting for you.
It was a Friday night, and I had just heard about a new thriller movie that was receiving rave reviews. Everyone I knew had already seen it, so I decided to go for the late night show. I texted a few friends to see if they wanted to join me, but they all declined. They'd already seen it, and none of them were up for a second round. I didn't want to miss it though, so I decided to go alone. The theater was about 30 minutes away from my apartment, but that didn't bother me. At least, not yet. The movie was thrilling, one of the best I had seen in a long time. As the credits rolled, I checked the time. It was already past midnight, and I knew I'd have to walk back since there were no cabs available. The theater was in a secluded part of the city, so I braced myself for the walk. The streets were eerily empty, with only the faint hum of streetlights overhead. At first, it didn't seem so bad. As I walked, the silence started to get to me. The only sounds were my footsteps echoing in the dark. And then, I heard something. A Jeep drove by. And the voices of men shouting at each other filled the air. It sounded like a heated argument, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I figured it was just some friends fighting. They passed quickly, the noise dying away into the distance, and I kept walking. After about 10 minutes, I noticed a group of dogs gathered along the road. At first, I thought they were just resting, but when I got closer, they all turned and stared at me. Their eyes glowed unnaturally in the darkness, and they started howling. Long, mournful howls that sent a chill down my spine. I shooed them away, but instead of running off, they bolted in the opposite direction, as if they had seen something horrifying. I looked around, but there was nothing there. It felt wrong. If you've made it this far, we know you're enjoying the story. We bring terrifying real-life horror stories every Friday without fail, and we need your support to keep going. So if you're loving the chills, like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a scare. Now let's get back to the nightmare, because what happens next will haunt you forever. I quickened my pace, trying to shake off the feeling of dread creeping up on me. But the further I walked, the more the world around me felt like it was closing in. The streetlights flickered, casting long, grotesque shadows across the sidewalk. I was almost home, but something told me I wasn't alone. Then suddenly I felt a hand on my shoulder. My heart skipped a beat and I spun around. I turned and saw a figure standing behind me. A man, but not just any man. He was bleeding, and the worst part was his eyes. Or rather, the empty sockets where they should have been. It was like someone had stabbed him in the eyes and removed them. I froze, unable to scream, but my body was on edge. I stumbled backward, horrified. The figure stood there, eerily silent, as if waiting for something. I couldn't move. My feet felt like they were stuck to the ground, my throat dry with fear. The man stepped forward, his body lurching unnaturally, blood dripping from his face. Then, out of nowhere, he let out a horrifying scream. The force of it almost knocked me off my feet. I turned and bolted toward my home, my legs pumping like they'd never worked before. The shadowy figure was still behind me, but I dared not look back. I reached the entrance of my building, gasping for breath, heart pounding. As I turned the corner, I felt the cold sensation of a hand on my shoulder again. I spun around, and to my horror, the figure was standing right there, its mouth agape, blood dripping down its face. I screamed, but the figure didn't move. Then, it vanished, leaving me standing there, shaking and alone. I stumbled inside, locking the door behind me. My heart was still racing, and I couldn't shake the image of that eyeless man. I thought I might be hallucinating or imagining things, but deep down, I knew what I had seen was real. My roommates came out of their rooms to check on me, concerned by my scream. I hesitated to tell them what had happened. I thought they'd just laugh at me. So I kept quiet and went straight to my room, hoping to forget the terrifying encounter. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to a strange noise, soft crying, almost like a whimper. I couldn't make out where it was coming from. I got out of bed, following the sound. When I reached the corner of my room, I saw him, the man from outside. He was sitting on the floor, face buried in his hands, bloodstains all over his clothes. His eyes were still gone, hollow and empty. I froze. "Why didn't you stop when I called for help?" he asked, his voice breaking the silence like a knife. His words made no sense. I didn't even know what he was talking about. But then, he told me the rest of the story. He'd been in that Jeep, the one I had seen earlier, arguing with his friends. They'd beaten him and thrown him out of the car, leaving him to die in the road. He'd been calling for help when I passed by, but I never stopped. Suddenly, everything clicked. The dogs howling, the way they'd run away from me. It all made sense now. They had seen him. He had been following me, and I hadn't even known it. I was filled with regret, wishing I had done something to help him. But before I could say anything else, I woke up. My roommates were standing over me, shaking me awake. It had all been a nightmare, or so I thought. But then, my friend told me something chilling. There's been a body found near here. The police are investigating. I rushed to the scene, my heart racing, and when I saw the body, my blood ran cold. It was him, the same man I had seen in my dream. I could hardly believe it. The man I had seen wasn't just a figment of my imagination. He had died just hours before I had my dream. I don't go out late at night anymore. I don't walk down dark roads. I never want to see that eyeless figure again. But sometimes late at night, I hear his voice calling out, asking why I didn't stop. We hope you enjoyed this chilling story, but don't leave just yet. We've handpicked 2 terrifying episodes for you on the end screen, and trust us, you don't want to miss them. The episode on the right follows Emily, who moves into a new apartment and stumbles upon an old camera with a forgotten roll of film. But each photo unveils something terrifying, shadowy figures, eerie reflections, and a haunting secret that won't stay buried. Will she escape the horror or become its next victim? The episode on the left uncovers Miley Cyrus's real-life paranormal encounter. What started as a dream, London villa, quickly became a nightmare. A ghostly child, eerie shadows, and a chilling past forced her to flee. What horrifying secret drove her away? Watch now. Click on the next episode. Before you go, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And don't forget to hit that like button. Your likes help our videos reach more horror fans and motivate us to create even scarier content for you. And if you got a real-life horror story of your own, or one you've heard from someone, we'd love to hear it. Send your chilling encounter to mrcreepymanpod@gmail.com, and it might be featured in a future episode. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next terrifying tale. Until then, stay safe and don't look behind you.